Hi there. My name is Simon Jooste. I'm the Minister, the Pastor, Reformed Church Southern Suburbs in Cape Town, South Africa. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself and my family in more detail. In another video, you can learn more about Reformed Church Southern Suburbs. In yet another video, you can learn about the African Reformed Churches, which is our vision for a new English medium Reformed witness in South Africa. So I'm someone that grew up in the leafy suburb of Rondebosch, just below Table Mountain. Spent my first 17 years here. So I finished high school in 1995, which is 1 year after the official dismantlement of apartheid. Nelson Mandela came into power, and there was set into motion this dream for a rainbow nation. Now, it was quite something to live through the latter part of apartheid, to see firsthand, to experience the segregation on the beaches, in restaurants, to see the poverty, to see the pain and the suffering that people of color endured at the hands of white men and women. I think a lot has changed. There's lots to be encouraged by. I think it left a pretty indelible imprint upon me, and it's a big reason why I'm back here, wanting to make a contribution to a better new South Africa, but most importantly, to reinforce the witness to the best of the Reformed tradition. So I moved to the United States when I was 17. I was fortunate to get a tennis scholarship. I'm from a tennis crazy family. I went to the University of Nevada, Reno, and I found myself in a very different world. As you can imagine, coming from Africa, the southern tip of Africa, very different culture, in many respects, years behind sort of the cultural and technological advances of the west coast of the United States. I arrived at a university that had the reputation for being a party school, and here I am, an athlete, scholar athlete, trying to find my way. Well, I'd grown up as a nominal Christian in a high Anglican church, and I would say that when I started college, I was still someone living in my sins, sort of doing what the Romans do when they go off to Rome or Vegas. I mean, the University of Nevada being 6 hours away from Vegas itself. In my second year of college, I was convicted of my sins. I think it was an outworking of God's sign and seal upon me as an infant. I received baptism as an infant, and I exercised faith consciously for the first time in my second year, after sort of burning out on the pleasures of the world, if you will, living a very hedonistic lifestyle, and began my journey of discovery into the Reformed tradition. But I started as a Pentecostal and moved my way into Calvary Chapel, and then into the Evangelical Free Church, and then became a Reformed Baptist, and then a Presbyterian, and now for the last 10 years an office bearer in the Continental Reformed tradition. But let me back up for a moment. My first degree or degrees were in accounting and IT. So I studied with the view to becoming a chartered accountant or a certified public accountant. I had to go on and get an MBA in order to sit for the board exam in California. So I became a certified public accountant in the early 2000s, and was able to work part-time, full-time within that field, specifically tax consulting. In my final year of college, I met my wife, Dina, who's born and bred in Reno, Nevada. Dina is the daughter of a minister, evangelical free minister, a man who introduced me to the doctrines of grace, for which I'm very grateful for. Dina and I got married in 2001, and while she was finishing her degree to become a music teacher, she continues to teach music part-time. I got my MBA, was chomping at the bit to want to go off to seminary, because from the time when I exercised faith, I knew I wanted to at least be a missionary back to Cape Town, South Africa. I didn't know what that entailed, but over time realized I need to get a good education. And so once Dina had finished up with her degree, I finished up with my MBA, had become a CPA. We moved to San Diego, 2004, and I got a job as a tax consultant in Carlsbad and embarked on my MDiv, Masters in Divinity at Westminster Seminary, California. It took me 5 years to get through because we couldn't make ends meet without me working. We had our first child, Andrew, 3 years into my degree. That coincided with me having to really grapple through, do I believe in infant baptism? And I came to the conviction that indeed I do, in light of the covenants you find in Scripture, the continuity of the covenant of grace between the two testaments. And that led us out of the Reformed Baptist church that we were worshiping at. I did a year in the Presbyterian Church of America, had an internship, good experience for me, but decided that I wanted to try out the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, which, see the light shining in on me, we'll take that as providential. We're in the midst of a storm here, so it's rain, it's wind, sun's coming in and out. I think it's sort of a metaphor for the journey of life that I and my family have been on. So I became an intern with the OPC and eventually became licensed as a preacher in the OPC. So after a year-long internship in 2009, we moved back to South Africa. This is 2010, with a view to me starting on a PhD at Stellenbosch University. And during that time also to spend my PhD, but spend more concentrated relational time with my parents. My mom and dad were struggling with their health. So we decided to come back initially for a year. That has turned into almost 13 years now. During that initial year that we were back, we were introduced to the possibility of starting an English medium Reformed work through the Reformed churches of South Africa. And that's something that you can learn more about in a separate video. We have 2 children now, Andrew and Adam. Andrew is 16, into karate, into the outdoors, photography, excelling at school, Weinberg High School, just up the road from where we live. My youngest son, Adam, 13, into judo, into dodgeball, a very imaginative, curious little guy, and well, not so little anymore, into snakes as well. Excited about getting his first ball python in the next week or so. So we're a family that has, I think, fallen in love with South Africa as a whole. It's not an easy place to live, but my wife, Dina, is particularly fond of the people here. She works part-time as a music teacher. She's involved in the community beyond the church and has found her feet as an American living abroad. All of us are US citizens, and we're very grateful for that. I'd like to close with a few words about my interests outside of the church. I'm not into reading theology and preparing sermons all day, every day. I think there's balance that needs to be had. As much as I love the church and dedicated to the work, I particularly enjoy the outdoors. I'm an avid gardener. I like to run. I like to lift weights. I'm particularly excited about the new sport of paddle, which is a combination of squash and tennis that's taken off in South Africa. So I play that. Great way to meet new people and just a way to get one's mind off of all the challenges and stresses of life. I'm also into art. I love to draw and paint, into DIY, and I'm very interested in writing. I do so in addition to the work that I do, the writing, the research I do for the church. I like to experiment and write in other fields as well. So I hope this video is helpful in introducing myself and my family, and I'd encourage you to listen to the other two, watch the other two to get more background about the church and our vision for a denomination.